What's going on, everyone? I am back here with my full review of the Apple Watch. So let's go ahead and jump in. So the Apple Watch was actually initially released back in April, I believe on April 24th. And the prices that it starts at are quite expensive in my opinion. The cheapest model that you can get is $349, and that is for the Apple Watch Sport 38mm, and it can go all the way up to $17,000, which that is for the Apple Watch Edition. And there are 3 editions of the Apple Watch: the Sport, the Standard, and the Gold Edition, which is the one that's $17,000. Which is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. But yeah, so the model that I have right here is the 38mm Apple Watch Sport with the space gray case and the black sport band. Of course, you can get the Sport in several different colors of bands, as well as you can get the case in a light silver color, kind of the similar color as you would find on a MacBook Pro. And the same corresponds to the 42mm as well, so all the colors and case options are exactly the same for both the 2 models. So yes, let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to start with is the specifications. Then I'll move on to hardware and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and start. So starting with the sensors that are packed into this smartwatch is an ambient light sensor, accelerometer, gyroscope, and a heart rate sensor, which is on the underside of the watch, which I will get to later in the video. It is also running what is called Watch OS, which is basically a custom operating system specifically designed for the Apple Watch. And on launch, it is running version 1.0, but currently, at this point in time, you can update your watch to version 1.0.1, which does include several bug fixes and enhancements that should make the Apple Watch experience better than it has been, which is nice. It also has Bluetooth 4.0 low energy. That is how it connects to your iPhone and transfers data and so on and so forth. And it also does include Wi-Fi, 802.11b, and N at 2.4 gigahertz. Now, do keep in mind that the Wi-Fi is not actually configurable by the user. It is basically always turned on and gets Wi-Fi information from your iPhone. So essentially, if your iPhone has been connected to a Wi-Fi network recently, the Apple Watch will then use that information and connect to the Wi-Fi network that your iPhone was connected to previously, which would then allow you to use your Apple Watch without the need of your iPhone. So that's a pretty nice feature. Moving on to the battery. What Apple claims, both with the 38 and 42mm versions of the Apple Watch, is you should get around roughly 18 hours of usage. Now, this will vary depending on everyone's usage and settings that they have enabled, so that might be lower for some of you, so keep that in mind. It also has 72 hours of power reserve time only, which essentially is if you put your Apple Watch into power reserve mode, you'll get 72 hours of checking the time. And it does use inductive charging, so on the back side of this, if I take it off of the stand, this little white puck right here is what actually charges your watch. So it connects to the underside of the watch right on top of the heart rate sensor, and that is how the watch charges. So it does not use any exposed connectors or wires, which is actually really, really nice. And it only takes 1.5 hours to charge to 80% and 2.5 hours if you charge to 100%. So fairly quick charge times. It's fairly average, to be honest. It's nothing too impressive, but not too bad, I guess. It does have water resistant IPX7 under the IEC standard. So it is slightly water resistant. Now, do keep in mind that it is not waterproof, so you cannot actually go swimming or take a shower with this watch on. So you want to make sure to take it off before you do that. The processor inside here is the Apple S1 computer on a chip, as it's called, which is powering the entire Apple Watch essentially. Storage capacity. This is the same for all versions of the Apple Watch. And every version of the Apple Watch comes with 8 gigabytes of total internal storage, which is kind of small. I would hope that there would have been 16 gigabytes at least. 8 gigabytes just is not enough, considering how much apps, music, photos, and everything that we put on our devices nowadays. So 8 gigs is kind of way too small. And there are specific limits to what you can use that 8 gigabytes of storage. So 2 gigabytes of it is used specifically for music, and then 75 megabytes is reserved for photos. Now you can adjust those corresponding limits to however you want. So if you want to only limit, say, 15 megabytes for photos, you can easily do that. But that's the maximum for those two media types. Okay, so moving on, it has a vibrate motor, which is called the taptic feedback, which basically taps your wrist when you get a notification, which is kind of interesting. You guys have to feel that in person to get the full effect. It is really, really cool. The screen size on the 38 millimeter that I have here is 1.3 inches with a 340 by 272 pixel resolution. And the 42 millimeter has a 1.5 inch screen with a pixel resolution of 390 by 312. And there is also a unique technology called Force Touch, which I will get into more depth with as I get into the video. But essentially what it is you press harder on the display and you get more options that will appear. So it's kind of an interesting little aspect of the watch. So that's basically it of the specs. So now I'm going to go ahead and do a quick run through of the hardware and show you guys that. So let's go ahead and take the watch off of the stand for just a moment. So on the face of the watch, we have the 1.3 inch Retina display, as it's called. And the glass covering the display is Ion X, as Apple calls it. It is not sapphire on the Apple Watch Sport, unfortunately, like it is on the Standard and Apple Watch Editions. So that's kind of something the cheaper models do not get. But it is still quite good at impact resistance. On this side, we have our buttons. So you have the lock/power button, which also accompanies the Friends button as well as the Apple Pay button. So it's basically a multi-function, which is kind of cool. And then you have the digital crown, which is the unique aspect of the Apple Watch, which it's a rotating button that allows you to zoom in and out of menus and apps. And it also allows you to scroll up and down on an app without needing to touch the display. And it also acts as a pushable button, which when you push it, it allows you to jump back to the home screen, as well as activating Siri. And then if you happen to double tap the button, or the digital crown, it will basically multitask between the two recent apps that you have been using, which is kind of cool. Okay, so on this side we have our water-resistant speaker as well as our water-resistant microphone. And then on the underside we have the heart rate sensor, which has 4 sensors on it, 2 being a green LED and the other 2 being an infrared sensor, which all 4 are accompanied to read your heart rate on your wrist, which actually from tests that I've done is quite accurate. So I'd give kudos to Apple for getting accuracy on that. And then you have 2 little buttons, one right here on the top and bottom, which allow you to remove the bands if you want to swap out a band and put a different one on, depending on if your mood. So of course the one I've got on is the black sport band, and it does come in multiple sizes, so if you have a small or large wrist, they've got you covered on that, so you shouldn't have any issues there. And it is quite easy to take the band off. You just push the button and it slides out really smooth, and you click on the next or the new one and you're good to go. So that's pretty cool. And then the band itself, if you happen to get the sport version, is kind of interesting. It's an overlapping loop function, so it kind of, you put it on your wrist, click it into place, and then this part slides underneath this little hole right there. So that's kind of cool. And the screen actually turns on by itself if you have that on in settings. So let me go ahead and put the wristband back on and put it back on the stand here real quick. Okay. So let's go ahead now and take a quick look at the software and essentially what you can expect to do with the watch. So to turn on the watch or wake it up, essentially, you can either force press on the display or you can press one of the buttons on the side. And currently it is disconnected from the phone, and right now it is running off of my home Wi-Fi network, which is, I do warn, is not very fast. So if some things do not load very quickly, that is most likely the reason. So anyway, when you wake up the watch, you are greeted with whatever watch face that you have selected, and you can easily adjust that by pressing on the display, and you can scroll through all of the available watch faces. And then the newly announced watchOS version 2.0, which is going to, I believe, come out later this fall, is going to also introduce many more watch faces to choose from, which is quite nice. But anyway, if you want to choose your watch face, you just tap on it like I did there, and you're good to go. So if you want to go to the home screen, you just press the digital crown once, and you are greeted with your home screen. And this is where you would use and jump into applications that you have added to your watch. So the ones down here are all of my first-party apps from Apple that were basically pre-installed. And then if you scroll up, this is where I have stored all of my third-party apps. And do keep in mind that the third-party apps are not independent of themselves. So basically, to use any third-party app on the Apple Watch, you have to have your iPhone within proximity, which is kind of annoying in my opinion. But that is another thing with Watch OS version 2.0. Like I said, it is going to allow the apps to run independently from your iPhone, which is going to be incredibly nice. So yeah, that's that. And if you want to move an app, you can do this 2 ways. You can either move. You keep getting tongue-tied. I apologize. You can move the app on the actual watch itself by holding down one of the icons, or you can move the app on your iPhone using the Apple Watch application. But if you want to move it on the Apple Watch itself, you just hold down on one of the apps, and you can see it kind of wiggles just like on the iPhone. And you can move it around, and if you want to place it, you're good to go. And then when you're done, press the digital crown once, and you're good to go, and you set the app where you would like. So now to give a demonstration of the Force Touch functionality, we can go into, let's go back into the watch. So the way you Force Touch is essentially, instead of just tapping on the display as you would be used to, you just force press with one finger. You just kind of press it quite, not hard, but firmly. And essentially, when you do that, you'll get some extra contextual menus and options that aren't actually there initially. So then if we go back over here. So if we go into, say, your activity, and then you force press, it gives you an option to change your move goal. And if we tap to get out, you can get out of it. So go into settings real quick. And the applications are quite small actually, because the screen is really, really small, so it's more practical to use the digital crown to zoom in and out. So to demonstrate that, if you go over top of one of the apps, let's say the stopwatch, and you zoom in using the crown, as you can see, you can zoom in and out using the digital crown, which is quite interesting. So if we zoom in, there you go. And if you leave it too long, it'll get stuck in the app, so you'd have to actually press the crown to go back. But yeah, that's essentially the overview of the Apple Watch. To give a quick demonstration, actually, of the heart rate sensor, I'll go ahead and zoom out. So if we go into watch, oops, not that one. If we go into the watch face, and to access the heart rate sensor or heart rate monitor, you have to go into glances and scroll over until we see heart rate. As you can see now, it's trying to measure my heart rate, and you can see the two green LEDs lit up, and that is what reads your heart rate, which is kind of interesting. It's a really, really interesting concept, to be honest. But yeah, see, it's trying to measure my heart rate. Now, let's see if I can put it on my wrist. It should try to get my heart rate here. So let's go ahead and let it measure. It does take several seconds to measure your heart rate because, I don't know, just trying to be accurate. Let's go ahead and let it do that. And for it to measure your heart rate, you do need the watch somewhat tight on your wrist or it will not function. And it is giving me 37 beats per minute, which is quite low. There we go. So now it's kind of jumped up. So that's more accurate there. So as you can see, it is measuring my heart rate live, real time. So it goes up and down depending on how fast your heart is beating at this current moment in time. So it's a really cool little feature. I'm not sure if all of us will be using it on a daily basis, but I know the people that are very, very into exercising and health will be using this on a daily basis because it's a nice little thing to keep track of calories, keeping track of running and all of that good stuff. So, pretty cool, and somehow it's actually getting a heart rate right now. That's interesting. But yeah, that's the heart rate sensor. It's quite interesting, and I do recommend trying it out if you happen to go to an Apple store or anything like that. But that's basically my review of the Apple Watch. Now, I do have to say that I really, really like the Apple Watch. It definitely has its uniqueness to itself. Now, some people may say that they don't like the Apple Watch. That's fine. That is your guys' opinion. But it is definitely a unique device, and I do recommend at least trying it out once, just to see how you guys would like it. If you don't like it, that's fine. If you do, great. You can go ahead and buy one. But yeah, in my opinion, the Apple Watch is a great device. I'm not entirely sure how practical it is yet. I would figure that later on in time, it would be more useful, I guess. But right now, it's more of a small little tool, I guess, because it's not entirely necessary to have with you all of the time, because if you have your iPhone or smartphone with you, that is a lot of the time what you're going to be checking and updating your statuses, say on Facebook or Instagram or other things like that. So it's more of a convenience tool, I guess, for those that don't want to take their iPhone out of your pocket to view certain information. So for those people, this device or just a smartwatch in general would be a perfect option for you. But for those that are on a budget or don't have a lot of money to spend, I would recommend holding off until Apple releases, say, an Apple Watch 2 or 3, whatever they decide to call it, to see what new features come out and see if it's groundbreaking or anything like that. So, yeah, overall, I do like the Apple Watch. If you're in the market for a smartwatch, this is a great option. I don't think you'd be disappointed if you decide to purchase it. But yeah, I would give it about an 8 out of 10 on rating. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button right down there. Also hit that like button as well. It's much appreciated. And if you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, leave those in the section below and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. So yes, with that being said, hope you guys have enjoyed this review of the Apple Watch, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.